have. I have watched you and been aware of you for decades, and for a lot of the time, disagreed with some of what you were saying. But and this is the important point. Through it all, you have adhered to certain fundamental values about family, about faith, about tradition, about the rights of men and women, about equality, about the right to a life, the right to an honourable life. And that has distilled down to the point where I have realised and come to accept that, where I might have not realised it for the longest time, that we are simpatico in a great deal. And I think that right there is the cause for optimism. I think that so much has gone wrong in the bigger picture.
I don't know why I make these videos, because, I can tag Neil Oliver and I can tag George Galloway. I don't know whether they listen to him or not. And I can even send it to John Campbell. Look, right, so I'm a little bit kind of like disappointed that my main YouTube channel got taken down, because that had all my evidence and my videos and I was doing really well with it, and I was starting to make loads of parodies and little videos and stuff and putting together really good playlists. So it's been a bit disappointing that they took it down. And the claim that they put on, the actual claim they've got against, it's one video that takes the entire channel down. I had no other strikes, and it's a false claim. They're claiming it was a serious strike when it's not a serious strike, and it should have only had one strike, not the channel taken down. But even besides the video itself, we're meant to have political rights. And this is what George and Neil are talking about now, these political rights. Those family values. They're talking about all the family values are things that are important. The rights come in with that. Because when you fight for all these truth, honour, respect, justice, all these things, those political rights are in there because to have a fair playing field and be able to fairly oppose anyone, at least through politics, which is the method by which you debate what we should and shouldn't be doing, kind of like a family argument, really. Sometimes you have family arguments and then you end up shouting and then it's forgotten. But this new generation, they don't seem respecting. Money talks, politics doesn't talk. Back in the olden days, with these family values that you're talking about, and the rest of it, what's true talks, what is just speaks, what is honest speaks and must be heard, and the fairness, the sportsmanship, this whole fairness value, those values are in the political rights, and these platforms are not upholding those. I'm starting to realise now that, when you're talking, it's really actually, and this is what I wanted to say when I started this video, and I want to have to carry on going on for ages. So, what I think that there's a strategy. I think there is a stratagem, a plan, a long-term plan. And I think that it has been in operation for quite a long time. I'm a person who thinks that there's I don't know whether it is the royals or not. I think it is. And the corporate elite, that in order to conquer and dominate without a fair opposition, which is what the Liberal Party used to be. I know George Galloway is not a big fan of the Liberal Party, and he says that, but he had a guest on that he at least agreed with. Actually, an American guest that said, the actual traditional, original Liberals were opposed to the royals. Because the royals want to conquer and dominate and tax, right? And the opposition to that is the liberty of the people, not the liberty of the royals to, go and do what they want. Now, the thing is that Neil Oliver plays an important part in the side where he comes from the archaeological side, because the archaeological side, to know where you are, you got to know where you've come from and how you got there. And I think that there's a lot of, there is a lot of different religious arguments and racial arguments and so forth in all this. But primarily, I think the royal family's got a big part to play in the fact that, look, what are they about, the royals? They're all about worship, singing praise, everyone kind of like, standing up, sitting down, singing, save them, not everyone else. And, their pictures on the coins and so, the whole idea of the royals. But to get there, they conquered, conquered. And Neil Oliver investigates the history of the island. The history of the island, that Neil Oliver investigates, it's not the royals' history or heritage. And to learn anything about it, to celebrate anything about it, and so forth, it's not favourable to the royals. The royals have got to look like they're doing good, or people won't like or love them. No one likes or loves someone when they come and conquer. You got to remember that. But the current format is that, we adore them, we worship them, rather than, we don't like them. Now, if you look at, all the shipping tax and the taxes, governments aren't popular when they tax people. Look at ULEZ. They're attacking the ULEZ scheme now. Monarchs aren't popular when they tax people. Now, they've got to have some favourability, like, or people will just, rebel. So this is why you've got RSPCA and things like that, charities. You've got to look like you're doing good work. I don't think that they are doing good work. The whole Northern Ireland issue to do with heritage and history, when you grow up as a little kid in, a world when, you play and, play with toys and, most people are altruistic, it's a generally safe world. What I grew up in, I think that you don't really think that anyone has any, unless they're very, very, why would someone rob someone because they're poor? You do find out certain people have certain, maybe vindictive streaks, or they do things for a certain reason, spite, jealousy, things like that, even if they haven't got money. But, when you're growing up as a kid, you usually believe that, people only steal because they haven't got any money or poor, so you don't go to any poor areas. But there are crimes that are, motivated by, other, lesser side of humanity. In fact, the other day on a program, it was actually Jordan Peterson was talking about, people being motivated by these, hate, spite, greed, jealousy, negative emotions, and so forth. But the Fox News presenter who was interviewing him said, he was a little bit doubtful, as if that was a big deal or whatever. But I wanted Jordan Peterson to actually know at that time, why didn't he make reference to all the songs, the music, the archived bodies of music, the lyrics? I mean, a lot of these lyrics are like Nirvana, Soundgarden, grunge music, heavy metal. A lot of them are death, despair, poetry, unfortunate, like a series of unfortunate events, there is a lot of negative stuff in the music, but that we apparently, when you go up to the band and, you get your t-shirt signed or whatever, they're all happy and smiling, a lot of the music industry, despite the Simon Cowell, painted smiles and this whole, you see, the thing with women is a lot of mainstream women like to pretend that they're doing good. Oh, we're doing charity work. It's Calendar News. It's, Carol Vorderman. It's, Big Brother. Oh, we're doing good for society. We're being social. We've got social programs. We getting everyone in the audience. Have a laugh, have fun. We're doing them a favour. We're giving them, 15 minutes of fame. We're giving them some prize money. They don't see all the harm it's doing, the whole fact that, you shouldn't have masses and masses being obsessed with popularity and worship and so forth, or even money, But then again, it plays to the working class. But the thing with that whole Simon Cowell sector, that whole kind of like, come on, Ant and Dec, smile, have a laugh, will be, everything's normal here. Everything's normal here. We're all smiling, we're all clapping, we're all happy. This is the happy, happy place. Simon Cowell's got, the next hit in the charts or whatever. But all that is beside the point of this mountainous volumes of, really, really questionable lyrics and, motives and intents. It's like that picture that guy painted in the Sun, was it in the newspaper, of Boris Johnson on that, on a pile of rubbish, and Boris Johnson's got a column in the newspaper, but there's some caricature guy, doing that picture. So I think John Peterson, he could have raised that point there and then on Fox, which would have actually chimed and really added in a lot more context and depth to the whole situation. But, I'm starting to think, the thing with this, conflict between, Galloway likes to think that Labour were the opposition to, oppression and the Tories and the Royals, but the Liberals were the opposition to the Royals. What I don't think Galloway understands is that, at least not in Scotland, in our area, to break up the Liberals and remove them, when Labour Party was invented and it spread from London, from 1900, for our area at least, is when it all went wrong for our area. Because our area had lots of, cottagers, and fair enough, there were some sort of milling places and weavers industry, but it wasn't necessarily gross excess. The mass invention of industry. I mean, the Luddites smashed the machines up, but all we learned at school is the Luddites were bad, but now we've got ULEZ opponent smashing up the cameras, or at least, deactivating them all. And people worried about this surveillance, now more people are worried about mass surveillance and microchipping. The Luddites, if we could have gone back in time, maybe more people would have smashed more machines up. There was a big selling pitch when Labour Party was started, and that selling pitch was when they put that Victoria Tower on our hill fort. It really was a massive flag for the Royals, particularly in our area, when the Liberals had been the Royals' opposition, right? And then you've got this Imperial Chemical Industries right in the entrance to the where the ancient site is meant to be. And this is the thing that I don't think Neil Oliver realises. Neil Oliver loves the history of England, but he seems to have a sore spot when it comes to trying to fit our piece into the puzzle, which is an important piece, right? Scotland's got loads and loads of ancient sites because it wasn't ever as, taken over as much as the rest. So it's got a lot more ancient sites, particularly around the coastline and all over all the recumbent sun circles and so forth. The South has absolutely dotted with ancient sites and heritage and culture, all on the south coast, Maiden Castle, all along Barrows, Cotswold Sevens, Stonehenge. Right in the middle here, we don't really... The fact that it's called Lancashire sounds like Clanshire, right? That we don't really have any prehistoric ancient sites that stand out. So the prehistoric, the whole... even Arthurian, this whole kind of like... There is something other than this royal imperial prerogative. When you're in the south of England, it's the south, but particularly in the West Country and, Bristol area, you've got this whole kind of like, that whole Avalon sentiment, that whole King Arthur sentiment, and then that leads and connects through to the ancient sites. In Scotland, it's not as popular as Stonehenge and, Glastonbury and so forth, but it's got a hell of a lot of ancient sites, and it's got its own Celtic language and culture. Anyway, that's the whole thing with Ireland and Ireland's prehistory. But in the middle here, we have got some ancient sites, and they are quite beautiful, and the whole layout study of the island and the river systems and the whole thing figures in when you're looking at Howard Crowhurst and measuring everywhere, knowing the landscape, places that are located in certain positions and so forth, the whole measuring of the country, and then the whole legacy of mathematics, meant to predate. So Howard Crowhurst proves, even measuring the surface of shape of the earth, size of the earth, predates, the ancient Greeks. So there's a lot of, without always celebrating the ancient Greeks, the classics, the Romans, the arts, the muses, we have got a lot of heritage here that, how Crowhurst is giving evidence towards this. This is what archaeologists dig up to find about the past. I don't think the royals... They have to kind of show some interest in history and heritage, but only so much as, like Harry Potter pottering around, Charles pottering around, he's got to do RSPCA because, he's, we look after birds, he's got to do something, the old David Attenborough pitch. Besides, you can't just tax people, and rule. So they don't want to celebrate it, really. Not like have a party about it, because when it's no one has a bigger party than the royals. The royals have the biggest party. The royals have the fanciest chamber and the biggest palaces. No one outdoes the royals. Now this is the thing you've got with these oligarchs coming in now when they started to make loads of money, Bill Gates and other people, whether or not they're in with it or not, with this whole Vanguard thing and the other countries as well. We don't know for certain because they've been covering it up. But at least for the English royals, it's not good for their style when people are celebrating and having a party about, another history, another culture, other, things. I don't think. And I think that the royals had a goal, an objective of pursuing this, Northern Ireland directive, and our area played a big part in it because of there's something to do with our ancient sites that they're at the same time celebrated but rubbished. They build this big, massive transmitter here, which, stands out like, a sewer thumb. And we've got this ancient site, but they wanted to get a big a royal emblem on it, get people supporting the royals. And it popped up at the same time as the Labour Party was invented. In fact, it's almost like commemorating the invention of the Labour Party. And I believe that the Labour Party, no matter what George Galloway thinks or says, George Galloway thinks that, the Labour Party are the penultimate enemy of the Tories when they're not, because they agree to do what the Tories want. they go into the factories and they make the stuff. And true, they make some for themselves, but note what happened is Birmingham happened, Glasgow happened, all these cities happened, and we've got McDonald's, Adidas, electric scooters, mobile phones, all the things for the chavs and for the council estates, modern things. It didn't happen in the way that suddenly, boom, everyone was equal, like some sort of what Australia attempted to do with all the nice, equal bungalows in Australia with the beaches and so forth, more of a, one class. It could have been, they could have had it like everyone with their own lands and their own, small holdings and equal, beautiful cottages more spread out and so forth, without any inequality in material things at all. That could have happened, but it didn't. What happened is they had a party called the Labour Party invented, and you work for us. And I don't think George Galloway likes this fact, but it's true. And no matter how much, they've complained and grumbled about the wages and complaining for more, they agreed to be the working class. We are Labour. We are the labour force. And, we'll squeeze more babies out and make more labour force, and we'll scream, the tormenting scream of Labour, giving birth to the Labour Party. The Labour Party was, no matter what it was advertised or promoted as, or what the people led to believe, the genius behind the concept of the Labour Party on the Royals' part is that you're now not our fiercest opposition, the Liberals. You are our workers. You've rebranded your fiercest opponent, your arm wrestling partner, as your boot cleaner, your boot polisher. And that's what George Galloway, no matter how much, he hated the Liberals in Scotland because of their free-swinging gayness or whatever it was that he didn't like about them, I don't think that he quite understands what the Royals did when Labour was invented. It was to break up this whole opposition, which came from Cromwell. Cromwell overthrew the Royals, remember? Oliver Cromwell overthrew the Royals, the Whigs, overthrew them. And that was significant in the history of England. Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector. I don't even know whether, what happened with all those battles and fighting. I think whenever there is war, there is something going on with the leaders, where, there's massive casualties on both sides and a lot of men die. It's always a good excuse to have a bit of genocide when you have a war, because it gets, it's like mowing the field. It crops your men down. You're cropping them down every time, and that's why I'm not a great fan of these wars, no matter whether they truly, were absolutely and completely opposed. But, Putin's not exactly fighting for freedom, is he? He's not exactly got a headband around his head, and, he's not exactly smoking a spliff and, holding two fingers up going peace. He's not exactly fighting Ukraine and the West for, freedom and liberty, is he? He's fighting for just another supreme power that happens to have even tougher laws and so forth. But he apparently they say that Putin's meant to be fighting for family values, but the Labour Party, with the whole, they use the television, BBC broadcasting, everything has been an ingenious invention, like Coronation Street. It welds together the loyalty of the working class to the royal family, the worship, and the tune plays every day, every day. There is a psychology in it, and it also plays on the woes of the working class, the whole emotional roller coaster ride of what's coming out of the Nirvana lyrics and all that sort of stuff as well. which you wouldn't have even had the Coronation Street attitude and vibe and the whole, if we hadn't have gone down that road of inequality back then anyway. But then you can go back further to, the African slaves, so it is important. So that's why history and heritage is important to know and understand, and why people aren't really fully aware of all of these particular things on the television, the programs. It's all been ingeniously planned by someone, and even if everyone other people have these ideas, but they don't get anywhere with them unless they're given permission. Like, Harry Potter with, J.K. Rowling. Someone plucked her out of, the flat in Edinburgh, and she, you have to be allowed, because now what we're finding out is if you're doing things that these big establishments don't like, you get pulled. You're not allowed to say this now on YouTube. Well, they're claiming you're not allowed to say this or that. George Galloway's Twitter was taken down. That is, people, now you might say, well, how does anyone make it? Well, there's so many people that you can't stop everyone from doing everything. But the fact is this, and this is one thing where I am seriously different from George Galloway and Neil Oliver, because they took a life of, well, Neil Oliver says that he didn't have success really until later on. He was just an archaeologist. He didn't get into television until later on. So it's certainly at a later part in his life. But if you really do not believe in greed, and if you really believe in equality and other people's feelings and so forth, then, you don't go for necessarily the excess money or the material things or so forth. It's all right, George Galloway is saying, we don't want to be poor or in poverty, like, Andrew Bridgen's saying, living in a house with no electricity and so forth. But if you truly want other people to be happy and healthy, then you wouldn't, you wouldn't want to take things from them. And in order to make money, you've got to take things from other people, even if you think you're doing them a favour and you're making things they want or need. And half of this food that we've got now, the doctors have most very certainly agreed that it's not necessarily good. And that's why, and then it all being bought out and purchased and taken over. And now they're taking over all the communications platforms and, telephone companies, internet and so forth. And now they're trying to make out that we haven't got any freedom of speech or right to publish stuff, right? Which is a lie, because you wouldn't even be able to do anything. You would be completely and totally deactivated and incapacitated if you could not have a right to. How does political speech even, how does politics even transmit, And this is the thing, the electric wire, the mail, the telephone, these businesses were, public owned, but some of them were private and some of them were private and public. But now they've all gone over to private ownership. They're kind of thinking that they can just, make up their own rules, what they want. The law of the country is the rules, right? Not company policy. But they've made so much massive amounts of money themselves and been dabbling in politics. They don't appreciate and value all the rights that we fought for. And now they are trying to claim that we don't have them. And they're acting and conducting as if they are, in charge. But they're not, because they're not elected. Now, the telephone, it's a private company. But you can't have BT saying, you can't talk about, COVID, or you can't talk about politics, or you can't talk about this on the phone. It's your conversation. You pay for the line. You're paying for the line, the connection. You pay for the wire, the connection, right? That's what the money you're handing over for. We provide a line, right? They can't start telling you what you can and can't say over the phone. It's your phone call. Now, if you break the law, notice that if you're on the phone and you say something that, what it might be criminal or illegal, then you can get prosecuted by the police or reported. But it's done through the law of the country, and that's the law of the country. Notice it's not the telephone company's policy that prosecutes you. So this is it. The law is what governs us, not private companies. You pay for the line. And the deal is that the Bill of Rights says that we can't be imprisoned for bringing political cases against the government or to the government, and we can't be imprisoned or fined or treated as criminals, and we've got freedom of speech. And the First Amendment in America adds to freedom of speech the right of the press. To the freedom of access to use of the press. Why? Because it's an extension of freedom of speech, right? Which is an extension of the pen and, the whole thing. So those three work together. And in the Bill of Rights, they all combine. They're all that Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is about judges, elected ministers and councillors trying to take our rights away from us, on the monarch, obviously, right? Obviously, they're aiding and abetting the monarch. And, charging us money or prosecuting us or fining us when we're trying to act to get laws made or changed. Or if we've been wronged and we want to get it put right. It facilitates, and they're trying to pull loads of fast ones all through history. So it secures that, and it defines that if these judges, ministers or councillors attempt to punish us or take these rights away, it's a subversion of the rights and freedoms and liberties of the realm, right? So it's wrong. They are doing wrong. They are criminal. They are breaking the law. And it says that in the clauses is illegal if they subvert the rights and liberties of the realm. Now, the rights and liberties of the realm are about all of us and about the people, not about, Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or, Google. It's not about individuals, except positions, individuals like, the councillors, judges and ministers, which are on behalf of the government. So you wouldn't have any clauses in, your constitution about some specific private company, right? So on the First Amendment, the right to petition and freedom of speech and of the press, it's not about the newspaper company owner. It's not the freedom of the press to do what it wants. Because the newspaper is just a company like a phone line or a wire or Royal Mail, right? What would the freedom be with Royal Mail, right? It's not the freedom of Royal Mail to deliver letters. It's not like, the freedom of the postmaster to deliver people's letters, No, it's about the right of post would be, it's the right for you to write and send a letter to someone, right? This is it. So, the idea that the Constitution would be about, some company owner, it would be ridiculous. It's about our rights of use of freedom of speech, the press, and, the bringing the case. Because you use those for the case. Because unless you speak about, the matter that you are petitioning about, which is a legal proceeding, this is what you say with the history, Professor Karen Bowie. It's illegal. It's like, in fact, really, if you go all the way back to the Celtic heritage, which is what Neil Oliver's meant to be looking into and researching through his archaeology, but the Irish have preserved a little bit of the old legal procedures and rules. And this comes from the villages and so forth, which is why it's lucky that a bit of Ireland was preserved. To know they elected the leaders, right? But the druids, the people with the knowledge and the medicine and the judging, this druid order was independent, right? And they were the judges and the teachers, and, the mathematicians and the medicine people and so forth, which you could study. But that order was not particularly. That was a national order, which had circuits around the country, which must have evolved and carried on from these people who laid out the stones and alignments and so forth. Because you go on, if you were doing the alignments and the stones, you would be going on circuits around the country, right? You would be doing. How would you make all these alignments that Howard Crowhurst talked about? By travelling around doing the circuits, and then you're going to each of these positions for these celestial events, at Stonehenge or Aberdeenshire, even in Ireland. So it seems to, and also, just to know about your island, they made these precise alignments. So when you've got a culture that have, men of knowledge of mathematics and, good judgment and, knowledge of nature and biology who are evolving from that, then it clearly obvious. Now, they had the separate clans and separate villages and separate kings, but the Druid order was all meant to be one nationwide thing. But the local people elected their leaders, but the Druids went round and did the judgments. That's pretty much how I think that is the correct model for it. And, therefore, knowing about the island and knowledge of maths and nature and stuff is quite important. So, and I think that we've really had that hijacked. I think when they came over and conquered, and then you've got the whole Christianity and so forth, they didn't really want people to have access to the knowledge, really, only certain people. And, there lies the issue with the royals. But there's also like military. You've got the Romans coming over military because they managed to get they had new inventions, they had new tools, new strategies, and they came and took over and took all the money. It was about the paying taxes to Rome, money. But then again, and that passed over, and then we've got various other events. But as we are now, there definitely is a takeover going on, and it's better when they don't have to make it official. You can't really. Our army's meant to be protecting us from invasion from another country. But what about if it's your own, country that's the upper classes that have been. You see, that's the thing. The military protects us against foreign invasion, but George Galloway thinks that the Labour Party was supposed to protect us from the Tories, taking the piss out of us, right? But I say that it was the Liberals who protected us from the Royals taking the piss. And then the Royals wanted to defeat their opposition, and then so they transformed their opposition into. They could have, at that point, they could have said, right, we'll have everyone equal. And everyone they could have still invented machines and had artisans and make things, it could have gone a different way, but they wanted everyone to be banged in the factories and make all these things, and then, they threw scraps to labour, which, if you go back in time, everything we've got now, we're not in poverty compared to some countries, like George Galloway knows about all these undeveloped countries that don't even have, emergency services and so forth. But, a lot of these machines are death traps, like the chip pan fryer with all kitchens that got burned down, and all the cars that got designed square, and rather than from the start, you could have designed them with padding. A lot of men got taken out, killed in cars, and people got killed from chip pan fires, and then now it seems that the whole massive food industry has been causing diabetes, sperm counts dropping, the rest of it. I think, this is my claim, I think that they just like to, it's one ongoing war against people, against anyone who would oppose this. Who are the opposition? Well, it's anyone who subscribes or signs up to this Moorish thing, this materialist thing, this greed. you know, come on down, be on the stage, be a star, be adored, have fans, be worshipped, have money. It doesn't work out for everyone too well, you know, because a lot of people end up getting unhealthy because when you eat too much food, you get fat and greedy. But they're victims of that, you know, in a way. A lot of the, you know, Alan Sugar, you know, you've got these Alan Sugar, you've got, you know, Keir Starmer, you know, Tony Blair. Those are the ones who are, it's almost like they are, you know, encouraging people to come join them. But, you know, it's almost like shaking hands with death, isn't it? You know, these people sign up and subscribe to more for themselves, and then they end up dying. It's almost like shaking hands with death, shaking hands with Tony Blair. You're like, aha, come be rich and famous. You know, like Elton John, come have fans, Elton, be adored. It's like a Pirates of the Caribbean, isn't it? You know, like, you know, they take the coin and then there's the curse, you know. You know, that's what it is. That is what it is, you know. They go for the money, they go for the greed, and that's what they get. But then you've got those people who aren't that stupid and go for the money and stuff and don't eat the food, you know, like, you know, now you've got these Greg Secker adverts popping up, you know, luring people over to the rich side. Simon Cowell, you know, and that's why I don't think that Neil Oliver and George Galloway realised that, you know, just because someone's not George Galloway or Neil Oliver doesn't mean that they're necessarily not successful or whatever, or, you know, they haven't, you know, lived a kind life. But then again, like in that King's Speech, you know, that he's got that guy who teaches him, you know, to speak properly. He's going on about, oh, like, you're too timid, you're too scared. The thing is, right, if you are a person who considers other people's feelings, or you have been bothered about other people's feelings, then usually you don't, you know, go, you know, getting off with loads of other people's partners. You don't, you know, sell people things and take loads of money off them. You don't, you know, all these things you hold back, you know, and this is the thing. If you really truly, you know, want to be kind to people, then you give them stuff, you don't take away from them, but then you don't give them things that are going to make them unhealthy. You know, it's all about being intelligent, knowledgeable, and well balanced. A lot of people in the movie business, you know, they might make these, you know, amazing films that move people, or might set out some point or muse on something and so forth. But, you know, do you really think that everyone, you know, should, you know, flock around you and watch your films and so forth? There's a lot of people in this world who don't go into the studio audience, don't go and, you know, kiss Michael Barrymore's ass, you know, don't go to football matches, you know, and, you know, cheering the crowds or whatever. There are some people who are just happy to hang around with, you know, just their friends, or go for walks in the countryside, or groups or whatever, without it being in excess, you know. And this is the thing now, what's happening with YouTube. There's a lot of people getting voices and having opinions, challenging this big elite. But the thing is now, the people who have taken over, we don't really know if it is like these young guns who have got lots of money very quickly, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Google, and they've done all the technological developments with the study of the university research, you know, all the, you know, innovation technology departments popping up, Bill Gates. Those people have made a lot of money really quickly, and they've had new philosophies at work, like certain language saying certain things, they don't like it, so they've redesigned language. You know, this is election misinformation, this is that. Everything's worded so it changes the meaning over to something else. So it's this whole magnetising things. If you're in offices and your staff are saying things you're not too keen on or whatever, you've got to remagnetise them so that they're changing all the terms and words and names for things in and around the office, until you end up with Jeff Bezos, who has everyone under surveillance camera, everything running like clockwork. Oh yeah, my parcels are delivered in 10 seconds. No one gets a parcel late from Amazon. He's made billions and billions, but he's literally got everyone. He's treating everyone like they're a machine part. Which the Luddites were trying to stop. It's all right. Oh, it's great though. I'm doing you a favour. I'm Jeff Bezos. I'm amazing. I've provided everyone with anything they could dream of, and it's never late. And I do it for a cheap price. But yet, the image, the logo of the company is this smirky, smiling smile that is called Amazon, and it just happens to be that the entire Amazon got wiped out and killed when we went over there with diseases, and that was a quick way of wiping out an entire continent, and that's what's happening now. We're getting attacked by these diseases that are threatening the whole planet. And it seems that someone's got a smirk on their face because they're getting moderner and they're wanting us to all go modern. And, it's like Rishi Sunak's plan is, well, you're having the vaccine whether you like it or not. So that's interesting because what the local councils are doing. You're having cycle lanes whether you like them or not. You're going modern if you like them or not. We're having all the buildings knocked down and the builders that we own, the contractors and builders, shareholders. We got planning permission whether you like it or not, whether you oppose it or not. We're getting planning permission. It's modern. It is. It means something, and this is what Richard Vobes was saying the other day about. Words have power, words have meaning, words are spells, particularly when you stop people using words because you don't like them and you make everyone use different words, like naughty, that's bad, so, but I really think that they've come into their element with the whole cartoons and TV because, things like Homer Simpson, it's not a coincidence. It's not random that this Jim Browning and so forth got together and then they managed to get a slot on TV with The Simpsons. Someone allowed them to do it. Someone gave permission. Strings were pulled. And the whole thing with The Simpsons is, and this is what George Galloway and Neil Oliver are talking about, family. It mocks the family. It makes families look dumb. You might say, well, there's an anti-racist element to The Simpsons because they're yellow, they're not black. Yes, but that's yellow means that they've got Dutch courage, particularly when they've been eating this food with Dutch courage we've been putting out there when they shouldn't have been disabling themselves, handicapping themselves, causing cancer and diabetes and sperm count dropping and making them more stupid. The Simpsons are actually the new model. And actually, it doesn't help kids. It makes kids think families are funny and laughable and stupid. If you wanted to take over with a Starship Enterprise styled society where Charles or Andrew is the commanding officer, number one, you get one of your Knights of the Realm to be the character on the TV show, like you've got your Nick Clegg, your Tony Blair, your Patrick Stewart. Unfortunately, they're playing their part. I think the family, being loyal to your family, your parents, and so forth, is important. But yet now we see family breaking down. They're trying to re-educate his kids at school. We can't even get into the school because of the gates locked there. How did that happen? There can't have been that many strange people around. I never noticed anyone when I went to school. Then you've got all the immigration and the raising crime when, if we're advancing as a society and technologically, then why isn't crime going down? It means that the other countries aren't quite up to speed with our way of looking at things and what we regard is the right way of behaviour and conduct. So it means that they've mixed people too quickly. The technology's gone really fast to fly people around in planes and boats and cars, but as for values and so forth, they're clearly behind. And then, they've got people at financial imbalance anyway. They didn't have it all equal, which is, I think they put an end to that possibility by getting rid of, the Liberals, because they're strong opposition who wanted, fairness and equality for people. The Simpsons, stuff like that. I think that this whole Jeffrey Epstein circles, I think that the royals or their circles have been very, very, very intelligent and clever, and they've been strategically planning a lot of it. A lot of the music artists got handpicked in the early days, until more and more. And then you've got all these misfortunate events, like, Kurt Cobain, Pennyroyal T, ends up shooting himself. And then, you've got Robert F. Kennedy could have been a strong voice, but he has a mysterious thing. I would even go further to suggest that they might have also been doing a lot of these things. I got something mysteriously happened the other day when, there was something in my spinach. I don't know how it got in there, but I don't know if it was pesticides or what, but I've been having them for 2 years without any. All this toothpaste, antibacterial, it's been killing us gut bacteria, all this Corsodil. It's funny, it sounds like the core of you is ill and you're a sod. Corsodil. That's almost like, Homer Simpson, he's overweight and stupid. All this obesity and cancer, Corsodil. It's almost like casting the spell, You'd think that these people want to disclose these things, but it's almost like, we're so clouded and dumb that we don't notice it, and it's like, it's like on Stardust, casting the magic. We're literally being transformed into dumplings, and the worst thing is when your family and relatives get ill, like mine, it's upsetting. Like my auntie was very, very overweight, and it's really upsetting. I mean, you should love your family, but it just makes me upset what society's done to us, and I really don't want to have to. It's too upsetting, basically. So then you've got a lot of people who do care and who are upset about what's going on, but they can't face it because the tragedy is so disappointing. So they end up not wanting to really have to deal with it. So you end up not talking to people. This, the main TV, deal with it a different way. They're trying to get everyone to, give, Dawn French a big hug. She's fat and overweight, but she can't help it. That's how she is, or whatever. And it's all, don't worry if your family aren't speaking to you or ignorant, and come give us a hug. Come give Simon Cowell a hug. He'll make you into the next singing star. Simon Cowell will make that Scottish woman, whatever she was, who won it. You will be adored, worshipped, glorified like Elton John. You will have fans, minions. This is it. It goes back to the sins, doesn't it? The whole thing. If we hadn't been misled into greed, then we wouldn't have got ourselves into this situation where we were making each of these harmful things, and so forth, giving distraction away from people because you're more interested in, seeing Gary Barlow sing or whatever, what George Galloway, one thing I think we can agree on with George Galloway and Neil Oliver is this sense of family and community. And I think that what George Galloway is social labour. What George Galloway talks about with his social labour, this whole Jeremy Corbyn culture of, Morris dancers and, the workers getting together and, having their unions and, whatsoever, that is still under the premise that you are going to, you are going to work for, whatever they want to give you, and it ain't much, but there's this whole, he's a working class hero, though, he goes out of his way for people, he does good stuff, I did loads of good stuff for people a lot of my life, and it doesn't necessarily always result in, always, a lot of the time, people appreciate it and are good back, and it's a good return. But, I don't know what it is about fame and stardom with this whole audience thing, though. I mean, I can imagine some people like it and get a buzz off it, but then again, it's like a drug. My rabbit, right? When my rabbit come and kiss me and lick my nose, it gave me like a charge. It gave me like a proper. There's no other way to describe it, but it is almost like the same, what you get if you take a drug, but you're getting it from nature, from life, from animals. You don't need to take a drug to get it. And I think a lot of these Zoe Ball people, Claudia Winkleman, all these other people, Simon Cowell, they are getting an addictive buzz from this fame in TV and so forth. And the thing is, getting the audience in on it all, it's still orchestrating people. I mean, I know the theatre has gone on since eternity with, the Colosseum and blah, blah, blah and so forth, but there's just something different about the fair, the feat, or the dance. When you got music playing, you got people dancing, talking, mingling. It seems, right, as soon as you get a speaker or a stage, you just become an audience. You just become, clapping at the same time. It's, for all that time, hours and hours and hours and hours. To me, why don't people, it's all right for some people who go out with their friends, went to the seaside, then we went on holiday, and now we're watching a show and all congregating together, but then we'd have to do it on and off to back to work. It was only one show at a time. But with TV, the show is every day. The Coronation Street theme plays every day. And when you come home from work and sit on the sofa, then the show begins and you are sat facing the illuminating screen. This is it. I'm not saying the world's all bad, because, you've got the BBC, you used to have Open University and so forth and so forth and so forth. But there are always these people and entities with intentions and influence. I think the Royals have been one of the influences. I don't know whether they still are the main one, because they don't want to disclose that, because they don't want to show us in their will. But whatever's happened, there are now some bigger, younger forces, and I don't really think they get it. Because I think that if you're Mark Zuckerberg and you've had this, overnight success, and Elon Musk and other people, you've got so much money so quickly, and you're into tech, you like tech, you think that everything you're doing is good. It's there's something about, in America, I don't necessarily think that they fully understood what is going on. But then again, America is a culture with a very, very, I'm starting to wonder if, America is like, Eurovision. But then again, Eurovision is another spell, another word. They celebrate it, but at the same time, it mocks the Euros. Like, it's Eurovision, as if Eurovision would be a different type of vision to anywhere else, So I think that with Trump and these figures, no one in their business at least, no one elected them. But I think they believe that because everyone buys their products and they've got massive customer base, that they're kind of, agreeing and consenting to what they're doing because they like it, they're buying it. Hey, they're buying these products, they must like them. We've got trillions at our disposal, we'll make them some more products, but they're not necessarily making them the right ones, and these people aren't actually elected politically, they're only a business supplying products, and that is not politics. And some of the things that they make and produce, some of the companies are communications companies like Post, the mail, emails, the electric telegraph, telegram wires that you used to have, the newspaper, print, and so forth. And those provide a service. You pay for the print, right? When it comes to what you can and can't print, the company doesn't tell you what you can and can't print. The law tells what you can and can't print. You're paying for them to print it, a service. I give you money, you print something, right? The law is meant to tell us in the country what we can and can't do, and rights say what people can't stop you from doing, right? Like on the telephone, if you want to ring someone up and ask them to sign a petition, or ring a company up to complain, or whatever, the telephone company can't start saying what you can and can't say over the phone, whether it's public owned or private. And that is what those fundamental rights were for. So YouTube really are beyond themselves when they think that they can start taking videos down. Political videos are protected by political law. Now, YouTube are trying to say, oh no, they can't separate the political law from political material because political law governs political material, right? Smoking law governs smoking. Political law governs political material, right? And then copyright law governs copyright. Now, it would be like YouTube saying that, this is what I said before, why don't they just, if they can do what the hell they want in the policy, why aren't they saying to Warner Brothers and Universal Studios, you can't have copyright on our platform, consent, submit consent. Anyone can just do what the hell they want and make money out of it. They can even publish it and make money out of the channels, Come to YouTube where you can publish Universal Studios movies. They can't do that. Why? Because America is governed by copyright law, right? Not governed by copyright law in YouTube's private studio, right? And that's the thing with YouTube. It's a law that tells them they can't do something or other people can't do something, which is what political rights are. It tells the company that there's certain things that they can't do, which is, discriminate between people's material when it's for political purposes, right? Or censor it because it serves a function and purpose. We have this in Parliament, things that have to be published, with requirement to be published or serve a function, a legal function, a legal purpose, like casework material for legal cases, witness advertisements, which is why you've got Class F advertisements and so forth. So YouTube really, they don't really get it, or they've been trying to play dumb. And the government is trying to take over with the whole medical reasons, the whole pandemic stuff, not for political rights. You can't override political rights with anything. I really don't think the government liked it when people were actually, using medical reasons, to not get, like when I was ill off community service, because, we've got medical rights. But now what they're doing with the medical rights is they're using it as a weapon. They're trying to say that because of medical rights, they can make you do things rather than, instead of like, medical rights, I'm ill, I don't have to go to work, I've got medical rights. Now they're turning the medical rights against us and saying, no, because there's a medical issue, you have to do this, you have to inject this, you have to take that, you can't go here, you can't go there. So medical rights are supposed to protect us, but they're actually using them to control us now. But they can't do that for politics because it's completely and totally free. And now is when people are on YouTube who can really make an influence. And the thing is, these inventions, these technologies are the privately owned, which is what Cameron did and sold it all off. Now, now what RF Kennedy is saying is that these platforms are trying to claim that, it's harmful to the company. A lot of these videos, our channels, are actually detrimental to our business. Well, the businesses are detrimental to our health, though, and the businesses are affecting our ability to communicate. So this is the thing. They should have thought about that when they had a business. They think it's all about making money having a business. It's there to provide a service, and that's what they need to remember. The telephone companies are there to provide communication. YouTube is there to provide videos. It's not there to redefine the law and what it thinks that people should and shouldn't be doing. It's there to provide a video service, right? And in the Constitution, when it's for political purposes, you've got the freedom of publishing, to use the publishing, which is why they've got public notices reserved and so forth, set aside. You can have a phone. Can you imagine if the phone company What happens if we all started using the telephone now to telephone ring people to say, will you sign my petition to have the phone company taken back under public ownership, right? Can you imagine if the phone company said, we're shutting off, we're disconnecting any phone calls if people start asking people to petition for the phone company being given back to the public when it was in the public ownership in the first place when Cameron sold it off. And that is the position that YouTube are kind of in now. They're trying to make out that they can pull the service if we're not saying what they like, which they can't. You pay for the phone line. What you say down the phone is your fucking business, This is it, and this is why YouTube are way out of scope. And why I've been trying to support Robert F. Kennedy's legal claim to the courts in America. So, I do think but the thing is, a lot of people are either affected by the foods that they've been giving us or just happy-go-lucky, and they're inventing things that they think are funny, programs that they think are silly, or like The Simpsons and so forth. But some of these programs and content are harmful. Now, this is when you get into the argument, right? You can get into the argument of, this whole wokeness. Maybe we shouldn't be showing these programs, or maybe we shouldn't be showing those programs. But if that were the case, you would be able to debate that through political videos and material without restriction, right? But what they're trying to do is take away that freedom to debate it, and this is the thing. Are some of these programs really bad for our brains? I think that earlier on, when it was all controlled, there was Elvis, there was Marilyn Monroe, it was a lot more controlled, and as more and more people have more and more technologies advanced, but this is the thing, they've got more and more control. The pinnacle of it is now that everyone's pretty much got a voice and so forth, but now Google are showing off with their flamboyant new tech, which winds you up and reflects back very clearly and prominently that I just heard what you said, or I just know what you looked at on the other website, or this or that. And it's waving it in your face. It's almost like a matador with a red flag with a bull. It's like going, I just know what you said in your front room, and now I'm putting it on Google Ads. It's like a wind-up to me. I see it as a wind-up. I don't see it as useful. If I'm looking for something, I'll type it in. Now, true, if there's something that, I would have been interested in and it pops it up and like, that's convenient for me to have found that. True, but there is a really, really dark side to it that is kind of inseparable. And that is the fact that the bone, okay, it's like a deal. We'll do a deal with you. You get things popping up on your phone that you might be interested in, like, fucking ham and eggs or a new fucking souffle flavour that you've never tasted before that you probably shouldn't be having anyway. Keep buying those. How convenient. Or that material item that I was always looking for. Someone's got one in America going for $6. I've always wanted this trinket or that trinket. And someone's going to make tax out of it when you buy it, right? There's that convenience versus, do you really think that the government and these entities should be gathering all this information on us, character profiling us all, evaluating our capacity, our financial capacity, our intellectual capacity, our legal capacity and so forth, profiling us, and then, maybe setting us on different fucking freedoms and privileges depending on, what impact we might have on their business, like, this person knows quite a bit about the law, he's trying to tell other people about it, we'll shut him down, because, Richard Tice is doing terrible at the moment with political rights, even though he's meant to be the leader of a political party and meant to be a businessman. You couldn't have the worst person. He hasn't got all our YouTubers put back up for us. Has he? So he's not really legally intelligent. He's not been making breakthroughs in law, although a lot of this stuff is forgotten. Because of the time, because of the period, because of the era, because like wars. We've just been through, like, my granddad was in the war. When I grew up, I didn't grow up in a war. I haven't lived through a war. I lived up in a happy world. You might say that's because my granddad fought for it. But who caused the war? You know, why did these people go to war? Why did they make us, you know, have shelter and hide and be scared and bomb Plymouth and do all these things, you know, and, these men in control, this is it, you know. And now I think with this whole lockdown and pandemic thing, you know, I think you're lucky if you live in a lifetime when you happen to actually avoid these things. You know, just look at, you know, the Roman invasion or, the Civil War or the American Civil War and so forth. So I think this is the thing. I think it's been isolated to other countries more recently, you know, like Vietnam or Africa and so forth. But maybe this does come with part of being human. And we had a bit of a quiet period since, you know, World War II. And only our grandparents remember it. And now, you know, the youth. But I think George Galloway and Neil Oliver are wanting to get at the moment with this whole family thing, there is some sort of sense of memory and history and solidarity in family. And I think that if they break that, if they break the families, and if they get people taught by, you know, Dr. Philopolipis around their neck or whatever, like biddy 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 or whatever, some mobile phone device or some, they manage to separate the children from their parents and say that they can't look after them because they're not responsible enough, and then they start teaching all these kids this woke stuff in school. I think that's dangerous because I don't really think there's been a time in history where, I don't know, because all the slaves were separated from their family, weren't they? A lot of countries, though, if you, like, a lot of these countries, like, all through Europe, like Romania and all these places, and a lot of them are very, very, very family oriented. Even the Russians are, all this sense of family. It's a very strong theme and vibe around the world. But I think when they've got people like Mr. Beast, the kids see Mr. Beast, they want the Mr. Beast chocolate bar, they want the Prime drink, they want it's cool, it's trendy, they want to be a successful YouTuber like Mr. Beast. And the thing with Beast is he gets all the money given and he gives it back out. So he's kind of advocating kindness and generosity. He's giving things away, he's giving money away. He gives away a lot of money that he gets given for, the privilege of, being famous. But then, it kind of maybe, I wonder if the young kids think, like, instead of, hanging around with their parents, they want to hang around with Mr. Beast, which means that you're kind of like trying to get kids to have role models who are these new popular upcoming people, and maybe forget your imperfect Homer Simpson, yellow, dumb family. Maybe drop that behind because they're stupid. Maybe, sign up to, the Mr. Beast Academy when he's got them all lined up, with the uniforms and so forth, which is a step towards, I think, what they're wanting to do with the Enterprise, with the Picard model. And I think the Royals have been behind that, really. And it would follow on from completely and totally erasing all family history. After all, if they start having test tube babies and designing us all the time, and, the rest of us go, not senile, go sterile. If the rest of us go sterile, the way it's going, and they're only going to be inventing humans through specially designed super baby test tube babies, and they can even change those when they want through genetic modifications, DNA and so forth, and then the majority of the workforce they're wanting as robots. I think that's what they're going for. I think that, Amazon, I think that Musk and Zuckerberg, they're really going for this kind of like android workforce, very heavily controlled and influenced, people. They want them to be all nice and, politically correct and, this and that. But the one thing that I don't really think that, Zuckerberg or Musk or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos appreciates fully, and that is anger or human emotion is a survival skill. It motivates you to act. At the moment, I've been feeling very unmotivated to read. I really have to struggle. It's more of a motivation and effort thing. I get, if it's something that's going to be upsetting or distressing, I don't want to read it. But even if I do want to read it, it's getting the motivation to do it. So motivation is important. And when you're unhealthy and out of shape, you're not motivated, like, Homer Simpson style. And that one thing that motivates people is when they're angry and pissed off, which is what's motivating these ULEZ opposition, which motivates, people like Nigel Farage. And what motivates, a lot of the campaigns, Extinction Rebellion, they've got all these solidarity and, rage, peaceful protest or whatever. If you didn't have these motivations, you wouldn't act. Now, I think that a lot of the issues with money and greed and finance could have been resolved, if we'd have actually had a society where they didn't actually take all of the profits for themselves. We still could have made technological advancements and have a lot of cooperation, but then you wouldn't have these single entities being in charge, in control. And I think that's what it's all about with the funding and the money. They give commands and orders. When you're in charge, you can, make up your own terms, your own language, your own company, words, business, the whole rest of it. It's about control and authority. And that's meant to be why we were meant to be opposing the royals in the first place, because they were trying to tax everyone and so forth, So, and no one elected Jeff Bezos, not in politics. They bought his products and made him rich. He's selling other people's products, though. He didn't make them himself. There's a marketplace, Someone else made the products. He didn't sell them. He just, has the company. He didn't make them himself. Just because you like someone's products, like, I like your, I like your vase, or I like your, sellotape rolls, or like this, doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with them politically, and you think that, you shouldn't have freedom to speak on the platform, or even have a complaints process. And the fact that they're wanting to try and remove humans completely, or even, they're doing things and you aren't getting fair legal representation now. You aren't getting any legal representation. No one can afford any lawyers. No one can really afford any lawyers at all. So, and then even when, you've got even Tice or Farage, who are meant to be politicians, they're meant to be the people who are meant to be politically representing us for our political rights and in Parliament. And even they're being duped out of the rights. They're even saying to Nigel Farage that, he can't have a bank account, or to Tice that he can't have a bank account for his political party, which is absolute tosh. That's discrimination, and that's against the right to petition, because you need to have an account to have a political party operating. So, it's actually, that's a subversion of the rights and liberties of the realm. And I don't know, the lawyers that Tice gets must not be very good ones, or they must need a tip, we need to get some heads together. We've got Professor Karen Bowie's paper. There's lots of research now. It's just a matter of memory, because when we had the war, they kind of I think the grandparents appreciated the freedom after the war that they fought for, but now all these rights that we've got that are written down that they fought for, they're not being appreciated at the moment. And then you just get, Neil Mohan rocking up saying, "Oh, take your fucking video down," or, Mark Zuckerberg, I'll pull your things, or Biden told me to do it. Well, actually, no, novel technologies, actually, if you had half of a brain cell, you can do computer programming, but, you don't seem to be able to understand the fundamental basic rights, Oh, well, that's not my area. I just, sell advertising space on Facebook, and do a bit of coding. I'm not a lawyer, but they've got gaps, you know. I don't know about, you know, Threads, Zuckerberg's new Threads app, but maybe I think it should be called Gaps, because there are serious gaps in his logic and understanding. You know, that's where I am with it. I don't know much about overseas at the moment. You know, I think George Galloway is in a better position to understand what's going on with that. But I do know one thing. Galloway's saying that he claims that the generals have got more sense than the politicians. But, you know, look at all these companies. I think if Galloway were to reevaluate the military strategic position, if we were to include all BlackRock Vanguard companies as military assets of one global regime that was doing military-style operations through computer systems and language manipulation and psychologies, not just guns or helicopters or, you know, Scott Ritter going to check some weapons. If you took Scott Ritter's Ray-Bans off and, you know, he cleared his vision and he's like, oh, fucking hell, you know, I got to inspect some weapons. I didn't know I got to inspect the entire BlackRock Vanguard fucking, you know, ownership enterprise and every single one of its fucking assets and companies, including its laboratories, food companies, the rest of it, banks. Oh, this is one fucking unit now, right? We've got a different kind of army now. Oh, have you? Is this a sitting army or a standing army? Just a minute. If all these companies are under one ownership and direction, we could prove, isn't that, and there's lots of military operations now which can be regarded as military by not owning tanks, guns, helicopters, or missiles or bombs like Scott Ritter is also familiar with. If this is 77th Brigade, 77th Battalion style military action, like taking websites down or intervening in communications or lowering your algorithms, or even trying to take away your free political speech, or trying to fill us up with, you know, harmful foods, you know, could that actually be regarded as a standing army or a sitting army if they're all executives in the office? Is this the new sitting army? And if it is it illegal to have, but they're not armed with weapons, but they might be armed with computers, but they might not be using the computers for defence. They might be using them like 77th Brigade or Battalion as an offensive. If you could recognise the offensive. This is the thing with Scott Ritter. He'd be alright inspecting a weapon if he could fucking see one. You know? He's sat at one, he's got his computer in front of him. You know? And this is the thing with Scott Ritter. He can't see the predator. He's like camouflage. He can't see the predator. And then when he suddenly can see the predator and the little short circuit fucking goes on the... Oh, that just like appears. Oh, there we go. There's Charles. Hello, Charles. With your military-style operation beyond leaders in a global corporate elite. You know? Oh, is it a standing army? Just a minute. This involves some foreign forces as well. These aren't on our register for the British Armed Forces under Grant Shapps, as far as I'm concerned. Isn't this illegal, Charles? Isn't this a standing army against your country? Is this an extension of our army officially, or is this another separate army? An army beyond the army, beyond leaders, Charles? Because I'd really like to know. And his Google part of this army is... have they got a symbol that happens to be like a smiling face with a wink, like TUI? Looks very much like the Amazon logo to me, that. Oh, there it is again. You know, someone else is using it. They're all using this Bendy Dotty smile logo. This is it. That's about where I am with the whole thing now. And I wrote a letter to John Campbell, actually. And now they're trying to take down videos and, you know, stop people from saying certain things, which they can't when it's political. Why? Because it's proceedings. It's a legal proceeding, like a criminal case or a civil action. But you don't... the petition is a legal proceedings from the public to the government, and it takes part. It has different order of proceedings and a different style of proceedings to a criminal case with a jury, you go to the people first with the very serious matter that you would like to raise beyond all the other courts and put to the country, because it's very serious and important. And then you, by using free speech and freedom of the press, you try and get support for it. And then when you've got a massive amount of support, you could possibly even enough for a referendum, then you hand it into the government and to debate it. But they pretend that this is just, it's fickle now. It's nothing. Kind of a little bit like Professor Tim Wilson's being managed by all these complaints departments that he's ringing up are managing him. They're managing us, and this is the subverting of the liberties and freedoms of the realm. This is the evil judges, councillors, local councillors, and judges, and ministers. This is a subverting of the realms, freedoms, and liberties, which is what Petition Committee are doing in Parliament. But we won't get anywhere with it because, they're just doing to us what they're doing to Tim Wilson, and he's a professor, he's an academic. This is the Petitions Committee are doing it to me. They refuse to publish, or they claim that I can't attach evidence, and they're not backing me up on my YouTube rights and so forth. Mainly because a lot of them aren't educated and don't understand it, or they've been misinformed, or they're on the opposition side. But either way, it's subverting the liberties and freedoms of the realm. That's what it is, and this is why we need to get it sorted out, or we can't talk about anything. And that's where I am with it. I need to get my YouTube channel back up. My 38 Degrees petition's put back up. It's a petition website. If petition laws don't apply to a petition website, I don't know where they do apply. That's an issue with the 38 Degrees staff. But that's all distractions. I'm spending money on trying to get help with that when I want to be trying to promote the cause and campaign, and then other people like John Campbell's channel are getting videos taken down. Verbs has had videos taken down. Brand is, spreading. Brand's assisting the other side by leading everyone to believe that we cannot do or say anything on these platforms. He's like strengthening the lie instead of I don't know why he hasn't got his lawyers to challenge it. If anyone could afford to get some lawyers to help us, then Brand could. These other channels that are meant to be somehow on our side, but we've all got differences. This is the thing. Some people are really into this. They believe, like Galloway thinks that success is, by looking at his channel and seeing it says he's had 1 million views. That is evidence of success, not just the fact that you're doing good, or you've got the answer, or you're helping towards a cause, or you're contributing. Whether it's contest or competition or not. But the thing with Labour is, Labour apparently, weren't the Tories. Labour were apparently proud of being working class and wanted to be. So I don't know why Galloway necessarily believes that, the higher numbers necessarily, are evidence of the, validate the success. Because, if you're looking at the bank accounts of the average Labour worker under Tony Blair government, they weren't necessarily very big figures, unless you started to get, to be... You were a Labour supporter who owned factories, and you were. I don't know very many people who own factories who really are truly, literally sharing the entire factory with the people. Although maybe Galloway isn't. That's the thing with the Labour Party. They're truly, no, this is the right way you do it. We work for our boss. Our boss owns a factory. Yes, but what about when they're developing in the village and we want to oppose it? And then, they're trying to say that you're not having an equal say when it comes to politics, and that's the thing. When it comes to politics, it's meant to be every vote is equal. Even the factory owners' vote is equal to the workers, and I just don't think that they can conceive of that anymore. I just don't think that YouTube could conceive that any person's channel or any uploaded video has the same right to be there if it's for politics, or has more of a right than what the company management think that you kind of can't do. They're in the wrong business of videos. This is the thing. They should have been, I think YouTube should have been Amazon, selling products instead of, being in communications and publishing.